Hello chess fan, today I want to go over a game I played around 3 months ago against an NM in which I managed to get a huge advantage out of the opening but didn't manage to convert it, and I feel it's really instructive on how you actually convert advantages and how you should approach when you are in a winning position. So the game started off with e4, c5, knight f3, and knight c6. And so here we had a Sicilian, and I decided that instead of going for the open Sicilian, that I would go for the bishop b5 Sicilian because I saw that I can force this very forcing line in which I know for a fact my opponent will make a mistake. And actually, my prep in this game was almost 20 moves deep, and I got almost all of it on the board, which you rarely see from someone my level. So I did some very good prep for this game. So my opponent played g6, I took, d takes, this is all what I expected, d3, bishop g7, d3 is just to get the bishop out, bishop g7 to take control of the long diagonal, h3 because this bishop now has pretty much no home anymore because all these squares would be bad. So my opponent plays knight f6, which is the main line. I played knight c3, knight d7, and the idea is to play e5 and also to defend this pawn in case of bishop e3. And so I do play bishop e3 attacking the pawn, e5, so we see both of the ideas. I play queen d2 threatening bishop h6, and I'm going over these moves a little bit quickly because they are theory, and this line has actually stopped being played at the top level ever since the Magnus Carlsen versus Fabiano Caruana World Championship match, in which it was proven that this is a little bit shaky for black. It's a little bit untheoretically sound. It's not very sound for black on a theoretical level. But that doesn't really matter at mine level. So my opponent played h6. I castled. And yeah, here you have a decision whether to basically delay castling with moves such as knight h2. And you can even castle here. You can go knight g1. You have a lot of options here. You can play a3, b4, which was played in the as before mentioned Magnus Carlsen match. And so here I decided to go for the most natural option, which is the castle, and we're still following my theory. And my opponent plays b6, just defending this pawn. This is still the main line, by the way, and my prep was still going strong here, so I play knight h2. A seemingly weird move, but it has two different ideas. First being to play f4 because there's not really many breaks in this position, and the second idea, as we'll see, is very important in the game, is to go knight g4. Opponent plays knight f8, looking for knight e6 and knight d4. This is the point of their maneuver. f4 takes, bishop takes, and yeah, here you have another decision to make, whether to take with the rook or the bishop. Each one has their pros and their cons, but for the game, for what I was trying to play, I really wanted to take with the bishop. To take with the bishop, knight e6, bishop e3. It might look like a waste of a move. Maybe we could have taken with the rook and then gone rook f2, but the rook actually stands better on f1. My opponent plays knight d4, and I played rook a e1. So I had didn't really want to devil my rooks on the f file, and up to this point, this had actually all been my preparation, and is still being played at the top level by Alireza Firouzja, but in the database here it says he was 2600, and now we know he's 2800. So bishop e6, and here I played what is a completely sound sacrifice that I had all prepped beforehand, and I had actually saw in the database my opponent had got this exact position and his opponent had not played this sacrifice, and the move is a spectacular e5, going right for the kill. And obviously we know that black can't really be taking this because the open e-file and such are too dangerous. For example, if black were to take this, I think either knight g4, and if takes, then we can go bishop g5 or something to attack this. There's a lot of different options. For example, knight g4, bishop g7, and knight h6 might be simple enough, in which case castling would be deadly after knight e4, knight g5. Rooks are both active. You just shouldn't be grabbing pawns when you're down on development like this. So instead, my opponent goes queen c7, as actually you can see, this is a mistake that has been repeated by many GMs. So even GMs have repeated this exact mistake. And here I played the very nice move, and I'll give you a few seconds to see if you can find it. But just think about going all in for the kill. No, pull your horses all the way in. Don't hold your horses back. I don't know where that came from. But basically here I sacked another pawn, the same pawn with knight e4. And yeah, this is just a kaboom sack because the e-file is just way too deadly. And surprisingly enough, this was actually still in my prep. This is still in my notes. Not for this, even for this particular game, I prepared all these moves up to this point. So here my opponent played a blunder, which is to take the pawn. And here I forgot my prep a little bit, but I knew in this position I was completely winning. So I played knight g4, and my opponent took on g4. And I played knight f6. My opponent was expecting that I would take back and then he could castle, but here instead you just go all in for the kill, just everything going forward. And here my opponent really has no options, because if they were to go here, takes, this is just completely winning. Both open files for the rook, pawns are hanging, like something is going to fall here, and it's going to be black's position. So instead my opponent took, I took on d4 with a check, also attacking the bishop. And after bishop e6, bishop f6, we see basically the end of my prep per se. The other part was not my prep, but I knew I was completely winning, and I didn't know this continuation. I found this over the board, but it didn't take me that long. So in this point, my opponent had 6 minutes, and I had 15, and this game was 15 plus 10. So my opponent obviously was very shocked by the opening, and I had mainly knew what I was going to be doing. And so here my opponent played rook h7. And now let's look at an objective evaluation of this position. Basically, all of white's pieces are excellent, and as we know, when we have the opposite colored bishops, it's often said that the attacking side has a huge advantage. The engine is giving an advantage of +3 to +4 here because of how monstrous this bishop is. And this should be an easy win. So when your opponent is very down in development and your like pieces are all great, what's the one thing you want to do? You want to break in the center. And so that's what I go for, d4. And here my opponent plays c4 because they don't want to break in the center. Now think about, keep on trying to break in the center. So here I'm playing very excellently. So far for these 20 moves, I've played basically engine perfect moves. And here I continue to play amazingly with b3, trying to break the center again. And my opponent takes. And now keep on thinking about how you break the center. How are we going to break the center? We just need to get to our opponent's king. And that should tell you the next move, c4. We don't care about pawns in this position. It doesn't matter whatsoever. This position has just went from +3 to +5, and I'm still playing very good. My opponent plays b2. Now, what do you think the best move here is? Keep on thinking about breaking in the center. So the move I played was d5, and this is a bit of an inaccuracy. What I should have done was take this pawn and then play d5, and my opponent would lose a full piece. But instead I played d5 right away. My opponent went here, which was a blunder, but a very natural blunder. They're supposed to go takes here. Takes, rook takes, pawn takes, c takes, and my opponent played queen c5 check. And here, I think that a very simple move would be just to play, what I did was king h1. Sorry, this was not the position I was talking about. But queen x d5 here. So now here, I give you a few seconds, find the winning move for white, and the move that would have ended the game on the spot. So up to this point, if I had played this next move, the game would have been over, and I would have played a brilliancy, like one of my best games of all time. But instead, this game turned into an absolute nightmare after I missed this move. So just see if you can find it. It's not that difficult of a move. And I'll give you a hint. There's basically 2 moves that are the exact same pretty much, that I'll both win. And surprisingly enough, the move is to trade queens. Usually when you're attacking, you don't trade queens, but after takes, there's no way to stop this. There's just no way to stop mate. And the only way to stop mate would be to go here, and after here to go rook d8. That is the only way to stop mate, and after takes to go f5. And here, obviously, white is up a full rook and just completely winning. So I missed this in the game, and I said played queen b4, which is incredibly natural, but it's a huge blunder, and the position goes from +7 almost to back to +3. So my opponent went queen c5, and here I don't know what I was thinking here. I decided to trade queens, which was very stupid, and now the position is very close to drawn because I didn't trade queens in the right position. So b takes here, and here my opponent put up a valiant defense, being very accurately. So rook fd1. Keep in mind, white is still completely winning here. King f8 is best move. Rook d2, defending the pawn, but also threatening the aforementioned rook here and rook here mate. Rook e8, rook db1, bishop c4, rook d8, bishop b5, the only way to defend. And here, after takes, might be the most savage move I have ever seen in my chess playing career to win the game. There is only one winning move here, and this move deserves like at least a 2700 tactic. This move is incredible, and there's not many pieces on the board, and there's so much things you have to realize about this position that I simply didn't realize in the game. And I think that can be learned from this move. I think it's findable for a player of my level. I don't think it's that hard. It might be a 2500, 2600 tactic. And the reason I didn't find it, and the main problem with why I didn't actually win this game, is because when I got to the winning positions, I decided to keep on going fast, keep on putting pressure. Don't think that much, or think too much. In every position, when you're completely winning, the first thing that should come to your head is, how do I put the position away? This game should already be over, and I should calculate as many lines as possible so that I can try to make the game over. so that I calculate a winning line. And if it doesn't work, okay, I don't play it. But I always try to go for those winning lines. Don't just try to take it to an end game and win. Because with this game, I knew I was completely winning. My bishop was 10 times better. My pieces were all better. But I didn't calculate the aforementioned win. So I had to, if I did that, I would have won this game. So yeah, I've given you time to try to solve the tactic. The ridiculous tactic and the move, I think that it would be really hard for even a super GM maybe to find in-game, but no, a super GM would probably find this pretty easily. But the move is h4. It's just an absolute ridiculous move. And you might say, wait, what does this move do? Like, does it really do anything? And then I think you just have to look in your head and realize, oh wait, black is completely stuck after h4. If we let's look at what happened in the game. I played rook d8, g5, rook c8, h5, and here my opponent got out. But now let's see what happens if I played h4. Let's say my opponent still plays g5. White to move again, find the winning move. h5. Black is completely stuck here. It is an absolutely beautiful zugzwang, and black is just completely losing. The best course of action is to go rook g7, takes, king takes, and rook c1, and this is just a winning endgame. Whether I would have been able to win this or not, I think I probably would have been able to, but we would have to see in the game. So instead, rook d8, and then from here, my opponent really held a very nice draw. They sacked all their pawns, and we got into this opposite color bishop endgame. I'm up a pawn, and yeah, I just offered a draw after I blundered this pawn. Because here, I mean, there are a tiny bit of chances. Like, for example, my opponent had a minute left, so I could have flagged them. But there was a time delay, so I wasn't able to do that. So that's the end of today's video, guys. I think the main lesson to take from this video is never get too excited, first of all, when you're winning, because I got very excited. I was against the NM. I'm completely winning. I played my perfect prep. Even after the game, I went to a GM and they said my prep was excellent. And then the other thing that you have to keep in mind is that you should always try to calculate every line the full way through, no matter what the position is like. So like, don't be lazy just because you're winning, or don't be lazy because you think, oh, the position's lost anyways, I'll just play a few more moves. No, that's how you lose chess games. You have to always think, how do I swindle, and how do I put this game away as quickly as possible? So that's the end of today's video, guys. If you liked the video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe. And if you liked the message from this video, please remember to share it with your friends as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one.